So there's a story from Michigan State back in the 1980s. A hockey player would come off the ice after a game, an actual game, and go straight to the weight room. His coaches would tell him to stop, and he wouldn't. So they turned the lights off. He kept lifting in the dark. So they started padlocking the doors. That player was Rod Brind'Amour. He was 19 years old. 37 years later, he's 55 years old. He just coached the Carolina Hurricanes to the Stanley Cup after a Game 6 win in Vegas. He took off his shirt in the locker room celebration and broke the internet. Everyone was talking about this ripped, jacked Carolina Hurricanes coach. Nothing has changed about him, and there's a reason. It all starts with a pipe fitter in British Columbia. Rod Brind'Amour was born in Ottawa in 1970, but he grew up on Vancouver Island in a town called Campbell River, British Columbia. He came from a working-class family, small coastal town, fishing boats and pulp mills. His father, Bob Brind'Amour, worked as a pipe fitter at the local mill. It's the kind of job where you get up before the sun, you come home tired, exhausted, hands cracked, your back hurt, and then you get up and you do it all again the next day. Bob Brind'Amour worked at that job for decades. And when his son Rod was drafted 9th overall by the St. Louis Blues in 1988, Bob kept working at the mill. When Rod made the NHL, Bob kept working at the mill. When Rod won the Stanley Cup in 2006 as captain of the Carolina Hurricanes, Bob kept working at the mill. Don Waddell, the Hurricanes general manager, said this about Bob when he passed away in 2023. He kept working as a pipe fitter in Campbell River well into Rod's NHL career. It's clear that he passed that relentless work ethic down to his children. So that's where Rod the Bod started. Not in a gym, in a mill town in British Columbia, watching his father go to work every single day. And there's a story Bob Brind'Amour told a reporter back in 1990 when Rod was a 20-year-old rookie with the St. Louis Blues. I remember one time he was about 12 years old, and he was running track and field. He had inflamed Achilles tendons, but he beat everybody in the race. He had tears from the pain, but he just wouldn't quit. My heart went out to him. He won the race and he was hurting. The guy was just 12 years old. 12 years old. Achilles tendons on fire. Crying. Winning anyway. Rod's own words about where his discipline and work ethic came from, I think that's the most poignant part and points directly to why Rod is who he is. I got that from my dad. That's the way he is. He instilled the discipline, gave me the fundamentals, but he never told me I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And there's another quote that drives the point home. He remembered talking to his dad about the mill work. He would get up and go, and I remember him telling me, "You don't want this job. You're going to have to do something different than any other kid to not be this. Every other kid sleeps in. Every other kid's going to practice at the regular times. What are you going to do that separates you?" Rod let that sunk in, and he said, "It sunk in for me." And I thought to myself, I better start lifting weights. He was 15 years old. That same year, Rod left home in Campbell River to attend Notre Dame Prep in Wilcox, Saskatchewan. He led that team to a Canadian Junior Championship. I think he was named the tournament MVP. Then Michigan State. And that's when the padlock started. Head coach Ron Mason had never seen anything like it. And this is a guy who's coaching Division I big-time hockey. I talked to him numerous times about not overdoing it, Mason said. In the weight room especially. He drove himself to perfection and would wear himself out. They locked Brind'Amour out of the Michigan State weight room because he wouldn't stop working out. That reputation followed him his entire playing career. At St. Louis, guys nicknamed him Nitro and Rod the Bod. Brett Hull, his line mate, said this about him. Everybody has a vice. For some people, it's drinking. For some, it's listening to music. For some, like Rod, it's weightlifting. In Philly, Rod played 484 consecutive games, a Flyers franchise record. He never missed a shift for nearly 6 seasons. Then he got traded to Carolina. There's a story from Rod's Carolina years that a former teammate named Martin Gelinas said. Galinis was invited by the Hurricanes strength coach at the time to work out with Rod. They ran the stairs at the old RBC Center. Galinis quote, "I thought I was in pretty good shape, so I'm doing the stairs, I'm getting to the top of the stairs, I'm barely breathing. And then you've got Rod doing the same thing with a 50-pound vest on him. That's the kind of guy he is." Galinis kept going. We figured if we could do half of what he did, we would be in good shape. Rod is his own man. He kept pushing himself. He always did a lot more than everybody else, and that's why he'll always be remembered as a legend like he is right now. That was Rod at 30, 50-pound vest running stairs. Now, Bob Brind'Amour passed away on June 1st, 2023, at 78 years old. Bob was there in the stands at Game 7 of the 2006 Stanley Final when Rod captained the Hurricanes to their first championship. He watched his son lift the cup. He didn't get to watch him do it as a coach. 3 years and 2 weeks after Bob passed, the pipe fitter's son from Campo River, the kid who cried through inflamed Achilles, the kid who got locked out of the Michigan State weight room, the player who ran stairs with a 50-pound vest, that kid who was told, you've got to do what it takes to get yourself on a different path to a different life. And on that night in Vegas, when the confetti fell, that 55-year-old man took his shirt off in the locker room, threw the Stanley Cup in the air and caught it. Because Bob Brind'Amour's son doesn't do things halfway. So here's what I think about for the Hurricanes going forward. When Sebastian Aho signed his 8-year contract in 23, below market value, he said publicly he wanted to play for Rod Brind'Amour. When Keandre Miller arrived from the Rangers, he had to adapt to a standard Rod set. When Seth Jarvis came up as a rookie, he said Rod made it clear that if he wanted to stay in the lineup, he had to adapt fast. Every single Carolina Hurricane knows this. You don't outwork the coach. You can't. And when the coach at 55 looks like he could still play in the league, the standard for what's expected of every player is set higher than any other team in the NHL. Rod won't coach forever, but the culture he's built, the culture Bob Brind'Amour built in him, and that he built in this franchise, that's not going anywhere. That's the Hurricanes' actual competitive advantage. It's not the analytics. It's not the fit test. It's not the draft strategy. Those things all matter. But underneath all of it is a coach who set the standard higher than any player can reach and made every player try to reach it anyway. That's what he inherited from his dad. That's why the Hurricanes are going to keep on winning. And that's why nobody outworks Rod the Bod. Go Canes. Rest in peace, Bob. Thanks for all you do for this franchise. Rod Brind'Amour. If you're a Canes fan, hit subscribe so we can keep talking about this amazing team and franchise together.